expect us to be with Meet the Leaders. Hi there, I am David Smith and Representative Gail Lavielle of Norwalk, Westport, and Wilton, our guest here. And she is feeling a little bit tired. I can't understand that after the weeks and months you've had.
Well, David, we were in until 2:15 this morning in the House, and they keep telling us that the majority and the governor have a budget deal. But as far as I can tell, no one has seen any documents, or very few people have. A lot of my Democratic colleagues in the House haven't seen anything, and the Republicans certainly haven't seen anything. So we have 12 hours left, and I keep hearing they want to pass a budget before the night ends.
Now, folks at home who are seeing this, and by the time they get this, it will have all been done and so forth. What kind of a sheaf of material will be coming out at this point? How heavy is the document that will be this budget?
Well, it's hard to know because although we've often had last-minute budgets,
last year, way last minute.
We've really not come so far into the last day without seeing anything. And my worry with this is that not so much that we haven't seen it, but it's very disrespectful to everybody's constituents, because we're going to be asked not only to vote, but just to opine on what we receive. And it's very difficult to do that if it's not extremely detailed. And then even if it is, if you don't have time to read it, how can you do it justice?
Well, a lot of people are suggesting that it really is a pretty effective merger of the latest governor's budget, the latest Democrats' budget, and the latest Republicans' budget.
I wouldn't know, because I really have no insight into that now at noon on the last day when we end at midnight. I will tell you that it's worrying because we saw 3 budgets from the governor and 2 from the majority. And while there were spending cuts, they were one-time, and there were some one-time revenues, but there were very few long-term measures that could ensure that we deal effectively with the $1 billion upcoming budget and then the $4.5 to $5 billion deficit in the next biennium.
Well, that's that famous structural changes that we've heard so much about.
Which we had in our budget. A lot of changes to the way that fringe benefits for state employees are dealt with, a lot of consolidation within government, sometimes letting the private sector perform some of the services, looking at our revenues and structuring them in a way that will make it more attractive for businesses to come into the state and expand the tax base, because we must do that as well.
Revenue is the ultimate answer to this whole thing, isn't it?
Well,
revenue.
No, we have a
money.
spending problem. The state is spending way too much money, and it has allowed its overhead costs, like state employee benefits, which are the most expensive in the country.
I'm saying going forward, because we've got apparently about as many jobs back from the 2008 recession, but they aren't the same quality jobs.
They're low-wage jobs.
Yeah, so that doesn't.
We're losing
really
high-wage jobs.
It helps some people, sort of, but not fully.
So even with these 2 huge tax increases from under the current administration, they can't collect the taxes they've imposed. The revenues keep coming in with major shortfalls, and the Finance Committee's looking at those while we speak, but the income tax is way down, and so is the corporate tax. That just means there aren't enough people or enough jobs or enough companies out there to pay those taxes.
How do you think budget, now again, you're looking into your crystal ball because you don't really have all the information at this moment, you will have by the time this airs. What kind of impact is this going to have on November, the elections?
Well, what we're afraid of course, is that the majority will find a way to kind of string this along and sort of do piecemeal fixes, and then as soon as the election's over, if they retain the majority, they will immediately impose big tax increases, because that will be the way they get the revenues. And the population just can't stand that any longer. People have left, businesses have left. I think GE was just the first in a series. And we really have to make the environment more attractive by actually aiming at decreasing taxes so that we do get more businesses here that will create more jobs, which will lead to more people paying income tax.
Well, they've emphasized going into this last few days, no new taxes and no new fees.
Well, for the moment. But in November, that could all change.
You think all bets will be off at that point?
Yes, I do. Because it's very difficult before an election to say, hey, we're going to raise everybody's taxes.
Oh, sure.
So we have some hopes for, we need 12 more seats in the House. We have some hopes for winning a majority because we really have come out with a viable plan that does not raise taxes or fees and that does cut spending, but not to the very vulnerable.
It'll be all over but the shouting by the time I see this. Thank you so much, Gail, for visiting with us. For Representative Gail Lavielle here, closing hours of the session in Hartford. I'm David Smith for Meet the Leaders.